The plea for help. They were HFY sci-fi story in the far corner of the galaxy. The Volari Union once lived in harmony, their worlds bright and full of music, their cities glittering across the crystal plains. But peace never lasts forever, and this time, it was not war that came for them, it was a sickness. It began quietly, a fever in the water miners, then the children, then whole towns fell silent. The Volari called it the Wither, because it drained color from the skin and life from the eyes. Their healers tried everything, herbal serums, plasma infusions, psionic treatments, but the more they fought, the faster it spread. Panic swept through the Volari worlds. Trade collapsed. Ships were forbidden to land. The Galactic Council ignored them. The larger empires sealed their borders. No one wanted infection. The Volari sent transmissions begging for help, their message echoing across countless systems. We need healers, we need doctors. Anyone who will listen. Weeks passed, then months, silence answered. The Volari began to think the galaxy had abandoned them, until one day, an ancient frequency pulsed through their comm relays. It was old, older than the Union itself, a forgotten Terran signal code from a planet once marked as uninhabitable. The Volari scientists stared at the signal in disbelief. Humans? That Deathworld? Someone whispered. Humanity had vanished from galactic affairs centuries ago after the Deathworld Wars. The record said they destroyed themselves. No one had heard from them since, yet the signal was clear. A single coded response. Message received. Assistance en route. The Volari Chancellor ordered preparations for arrival. Their people felt a fragile hope return. They imagined Whitehall hospital ships, medics wearing bright suits, kind faces with soft voices, healers who would bring life back to their dying worlds. Days passed. Scanners searched the void. Then one night the stars shifted. The warning alarm screamed across the orbital stations. A fleet had entered the system. The Volari rushed to the observation decks and froze. Emerging from hyperspace was not a convoy of hospital ships, but a column of colossal dreadnoughts dark as obsidian, their hulls marked with the emblem of a serpent biting its own tail. Plasma drives burned blue like the eyes of gods, their formation perfect, silent, terrifying. The lead vessel dwarfed anything the Volari had ever built. Its name glowed faintly across its hull, TRS Nightingale. For a long moment, no one spoke. The Chancellor's voice trembled. Are those healers? A calm transmission arrived from the flagship. The voice human, deep and measured. Volari Union. Your distress signal has been received. We come as requested. To heal your worlds. The Volari officers exchanged uneasy glances. Their scanners detected railgun batteries, orbital cannons, and drop pods, tools of war, not medicine. Yet the humans descended anyway. Massive landing craft entering the atmosphere with thunderous trails of fire. When they landed, armored soldiers stepped onto the soil, their visors glowing faintly blue. Behind them came drones releasing silver mist across infected towns. Within hours, the mist consumed the plague spores, purging the air clean. People began to breathe again without pain. The Volari medics approached cautiously. You bring soldiers with your medicine? One asked. The human officer removed his helmet, revealing tired eyes and a scar that crossed his jaw. Where there is disease, he said quietly, there is always someone who made it. As the humans worked, more ships arrived, orbiting the Volari homeworld like a wall of steel. Orbital platforms began scanning deep space for bioweapon signatures. Something in the way they moved felt both clinical and military. By the next day, hundreds of Volari lives had been saved. Human drones built field hospitals overnight, and yet their warships stayed in high orbit, guns hot, engines humming like a storm waiting to strike. Rumors spread quickly among the Volari. Some whispered that the humans were not just doctors. They were executioners who cured planets by erasing their sickness at the source. Others said the humans had changed, evolved into something more than soldiers, something colder. That night, the Chancellor stood on the balcony overlooking the sky. The dreadnoughts shimmered above like black suns, she whispered to herself. We asked for healers. And as a low rumble of thunder rolled from the clouds, she added, and they brought warships instead, in orbit. Aboard the Nightingale, Admiral Rhea Locke watched the Volari world spin below. Her officers reported the cure was taking effect, but traces of the pathogen led beyond this system. Someone had released it intentionally. Rhea's expression hardened. Then our work is not finished, she said. Prepare the fleet. We heal next by fire. And so began humanity's return to the galaxy. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as healers of a different kind, the kind that bring peace through thunder. Arrival of the Deathworlders. HFY Sci-Fi story the next morning. The sky above Velar turned silver. Human warships hung in orbit like silent gods, each one large enough to eclipse a moon. Their hulls smooth, dark, and scarred with the marks of old wars, the Velari people watched from the ground. Half in awe, half in fear, from the flagship Nightingale, Admiral Rhea Locke stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the wounded planet below. Scanners displayed the plagues spread in red veins across the continents. Her voice was calm. Deploy the relief divisions. Establish orbital quarantine, and prepare planetary insertion. Massive dropships descended through the clouds, their engines roaring like thunder. When they touched the surface, the ground trembled. Armored humans stepped out, their armor matte black with blue insignias glowing on the shoulders. Drones followed, spreading waves of sterilizing mist through the air. To the Velari, it looked like an invasion. Panic broke in the cities, civilians ran, soldiers raised energy rifles, but then in minutes, the human mist cleansed the streets. People who had been coughing blood suddenly gasped in shock as their lungs cleared. Medpods unfolded from the dropships, scanning, healing, regenerating tissue faster than any known alien technology. Velari medics approached carefully. Their leader, Healer Tirana, stepped forward and bowed. "We are grateful, but why the soldiers?" she asked. The human commander removed his helmet, revealing short gray hair and eyes that burned like ice. "Because your sickness isn't natural," he said. "Someone did this to you," the Velari gasped. They had suspected sabotage but never dared to believe it. The humans, however, moved with certainty. Orbital scans began tracing the pathogen's molecular structure, matching it to known patterns. Admiral Locke received the first report within the hour. Her jaw tightened. Genetic design, Tarn Dominion signature. Meanwhile, on the surface, human engineers set up mobile hospitals that doubled as fortresses. Plasma shields covered the facilities. Turrets lined the perimeter, and human AI systems analyzed every cell of the disease. To the Velari, it seemed like the humans were preparing for battle, not healing yet everywhere the humans went. Death retreated. Children who had been days from dying were walking again. Mothers wept as their loved ones woke from fevered dreams. The people began to see that these warriors were healers in their own way, their methods cold but effective that night. Velari leaders were invited aboard the Nightingale. When they entered the ship's main deck, they froze. Holographic displays showed not just their planet, but an entire sector of space. Red lines connected infected systems like veins of rot. Admiral Locke stood before the display. "This was not random," she said. "The pathogen is a weapon field tested on your worlds," the Chancellor trembled. "You came to cure us. Will you now go to war?" Rhea Locke turned, her expression unreadable. "We came to do both," the Velari delegation left in silence. Outside the viewport, they could see more human ships arriving, forming a silent wall of steel. The galaxy had begged for healers, and humanity had answered. But humanity healed differently. Their medicine came wrapped in armor. Their kindness carried guns down on the planet. Velari civilians began leaving food, flowers, and small flags of gratitude at human camps. They didn't understand these Deathworlders, but they felt safe under their shadow. For the first time in months, their skies were guarded as dawn rose. Human drones launched into orbit, scanning for Tarn Dominion signals, and the fleet's reactors began to hum with growing power. Humanity had arrived not only to cure, but to deliver a warning to whoever had dared to unleash sickness upon innocent worlds. In the command chamber, Rhea Locke whispered, "Prepare medical teams for extraction. Once the cure stabilizes, the fleet moves out." Her second officer asked quietly, "Admiral, should we alert the Council?" Rhea looked at the stars, her voice steady. "No, we'll speak through action. Deathworlders don't send messages. We send examples." Above Velar, the Dreadnoughts glowed under the sun, their engines awakening like a sleeping storm. And across the galaxy, whispers began once again. The humans had returned, not as conquerors but as healers of a different kind, healers who carried vengeance in their hearts and dreadnoughts in their wake. The truth behind the plague. HFY Sci-Fi story for 3 days. The humans worked without rest. Their machines hummed, their drones floated across infected valleys, and the plague's red clouds vanished from the Velari skies. The people began to smile again, but the Deathworlders never stopped watching the stars. Admiral Rhea Locke stood in the Nightingale's command hall. her eyes fixed on a holographic projection spinning above the deck. Bright threads of data twisted together, each strand a sample of the pathogen. The AI voice spoke softly. Genetic base confirmed, synthetic origin, pattern match, Tarn Dominion Laboratories, probability 97.4%, Rhea exhaled slowly. Her voice a quiet growl. So it's true. Below on the planet, Captain Harlan and his medical combat unit searched the ruins of a Volari research outpost. Inside they found containers marked with alien symbols, and small crystalline vials still glowing faintly blue. Harlan lifted one under his visor light. The readings were toxic, active and coded with military encryption. He tapped his wristcom. Admiral. Confirmation. We found the source. This wasn't a plague. It was a weapon test back on the Nightingale. Silence filled the bridge. The Volari Chancellor, who had been invited to witness the report, covered her mouth in shock. Why would the Dominion do this? We are neutral. We trade with everyone. Rhea's gaze was cold. That's why, Chancellor, you're weak enough to be used and rich enough to be worth testing on. The Volari delegates stared at her in horror. You can't retaliate. They are too powerful. They'll burn us all. The Admiral's expression did not change. You asked for healers, and we are healing your world. But a cure must remove the cause at her command. The human fleet expanded its sensor net. Deep space probes launched at light speed, mapping Dominion outposts, medical stations, and supply routes within hours. A clear pattern emerged, a hidden ring of biological testing sites orbiting uncharted moons. Meanwhile, on the surface, the Volari watched the humans dismantle their infected labs. Every fragment was scanned, sterilized, and then vaporized from orbit. The humans left nothing behind that could harm again. The alien scientists whispered among themselves. They treat the disease like a war, one said. No, replied another. They treat war like a disease. Night fell again, and the humans gathered their data. The plague was gone, but something darker lingered. The knowledge of who had done it. In the Nightingale's war room, a hologram of the Tarn Dominion's insignia flickered in red. Rhea looked at it for a long time, then spoke to her officers. Prepare the fleet. Full burn toward Dominion territory. Medical ships remain behind. We move within 12 hours. Her second-in-command hesitated. Admiral, if we strike without council approval, we'll be branded as aggressors. Rhea smiled faintly, a tired human smile. Aggressors? No, Lieutenant, we'll be remembered as healers. The kind who don't let the infection spread. As the fleet powered up, the Volari Chancellor made one last plea. You've saved us, please. Don't start another war. Rhea placed a gloved hand on the console, her reflection framed by the starlight. War is what happens when you let sickness grow, Chancellor. This is treatment. Her words echoed through the comms as the human ships aligned. Dreadnoughts gleaming, engines burning blue, hundreds of railgun ports opening like the eyes of giants awakening from long sleep. Across the galaxy, Dominion sensors began to pick up unknown signals. Coded human transmissions long thought extinct. Old names whispered and fear resurfaced. Terran Recovery Corps, Deathworlder Fleet Command, Project Curefire. The galaxy remembered what humanity was, and trembled. On the Volari world, survivors looked to the sky as the last human dreadnought rose into orbit, its engines leaving trails of silver light. Some prayed, some wept, and some simply whispered. They came to heal, far beyond the stars. The fleet vanished into hyperspace, heading toward the heart of the Dominion. Their mission clear, to end the source of the plague before another world suffered. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy understood what humanity meant by the word healing. And it was not gentle, it was absolute. The Retaliation Fleet. HFY Sci-Fi story. The void between stars burned blue as humanity's dreadnoughts roared through hyperspace. The Nightingale led the armada, her hull streaked with light like a blade cutting through the dark. On every ship, Deathworlder crews moved with silent discipline. Their hearts heavy not with anger, but with purpose. They were not marching to conquer. They were marching to heal the wound that had infected the galaxy. In the command bridge, Admiral Rhea watched the stars bend and twist, her voice steady. Our objective is the Tarn Dominion research ring. Moons Delta 9 through 12, full sterilization protocol, minimum collateral, no civilian harm. The officer beside her hesitated. Admiral, their fleets outnumber us 10 to 1. Rhea's lips curved faintly. then they have 10 times the capacity to surrender. When the human fleet dropped from hyperspace, the Dominion's defense grid awakened instantly. Thousands of ships formed walls of light, weapons locked, alarms screamed across their networks. But the humans didn't slow down. The first Terran Dreadnought opened fire. Railgun rounds accelerated to a fraction of light speed, tearing through cruisers before their shields could rise. Orbital labs exploded in blue fire. Yet the explosions were surgical. Each strike erased only the contaminated sites, leaving civilian habitats untouched. From the surface of a Dominion world, witnesses watched in horror and awe as black ships glided through the upper atmosphere like grim angels, their weapons precise, their silence louder than thunder. One Dominion commander shouted over comms, "Humans, you have no authority here." Rhea's reply came cold. "Authority is irrelevant when you spread disease. We are the cure," as her words echoed. The Nightingale's main cannon activated. A beam of white light descended, slicing through the central research station, the core of the bioweapon project. Its destruction sent ripples across nearby systems. Power grids failed, data archives burned, and for the first time in centuries, the Dominion trembled. Within hours, the Terran Recovery Corps secured every target. Deploying containment drones to neutralize surviving spores, they treated the battlefield like a contaminated wound, sterilizing every fragment, every shadow, until no trace of the plague remained. Other alien empires watched from afar, their fleets cloaked, their leaders whispering in disbelief the Deathworlders had returned. And they did not fight like any empire. They fought like surgeons cutting out rot. Even the Dominion's High Council fell silent, their fleets too afraid to pursue. For every attempt to counterattack met the same result: total neutralization, minimal death, absolute control in orbit. Rhea Locke stood by the viewport as burning debris drifted past. "Operation Cure Fire complete," her officer reported. "All biolabs destroyed, 0 civilian casualties." She nodded slowly. "Then we've healed enough for today," but deep inside her, she knew it wasn't over, because somewhere beyond these stars, others would see humanity's act not as mercy, but as a warning. The Valari Chancellor transmitted a message across the void, her voice trembling yet full of gratitude. "Admiral Locke, we watched what you did, and though the stars tremble, we thank you. Your cure came with thunder, but it saved us." Rhea closed her eyes for a moment, her reply calm. "Then remember this, Chancellor. Mercy without strength invites the next plague. Peace must be guarded always." The transmission ended, and the fleet began its slow turn toward home. But whispers spread through the galactic network, stories of ships that healed through fire, soldiers who cured through destruction. In council chambers, frightened leaders argued. They call themselves healers, but they wield weapons of extinction. Others whispered, they ended the plague without killing the innocent, maybe. Maybe they are right. And in dark corners of the Dominion, fear replaced arrogance. Every scientist who had touched the bioweapon program vanished. Some surrendered to other empires for protection. Others fled into deep space, hunted by shadows with Terran signatures. The galaxy's sickness had been burned away, but the memory of humanity's return remained, a scar and a promise both. As the Nightingale entered hyperspace once more, Rhea Locke looked at the fading stars, her hand resting on the console. "Prepare the med fleets," she said softly. "We go where we're needed next." Her voice echoed across the bridge. Quiet but absolute. We are healers, and healing never ends. And far behind them, in the ashes of the Dominion, silence settled, clean, complete, and terrifying. Healers of war. Just an HFY Sci-Fi story weeks passed since the firestorm over Tarn Dominion. The stars had gone silent again, but this time the silence was not from fear. It was from awe. Rumors spread faster than light. Whispers of black ships that cured plagues and erased evil. Whispers of humans who healed through war. On the Valari homeworld, life returned. The air was clean. The rivers sparkled again, and children laughed in the streets. Yet every time they looked to the sky, they remembered the dreadnoughts that had hung above like gods, guardians who brought thunder instead of prayer. In the capital's grand hall, the Valari Chancellor addressed her people. The Deathworlders have left us their medicine, their technology, and their warning. Never again shall we forget the cost of peace. Her voice echoed through the city as drones played recordings of the humans landing, armored and resolute, a symbol of protection that no one could forget. Far beyond, the Nightingale drifted in orbit over a quiet nebula, its hull scarred but proud, Admiral Rhea Locke stood in her private chamber, gazing at a hollow feed of countless messages, thank yous, prayers, and pleas from worlds that now sought help from the Terran Recovery Corps. Every signal carried a different tone. Some called them heroes, others called them monsters. Her first officer entered quietly. "Admiral," the council finally replied. "They demand an explanation for the Dominion strike." Rhea smirked faintly. "Tell them we applied the cure." He hesitated. "They fear you, Admiral." She turned toward the viewport, the blue light from the nebula shining across her armor. "Good, fear keeps disease in check back on Valar." Healer Tirana wrote a report for her academy. She described the humans not as destroyers, but as guardians of balance. Her words spread through academic circles, changing opinions, transforming myths into truth. Across the galaxy, memorials began appearing, stone figures of humans with outstretched hands, half warrior, half doctor. Under one of them, a single inscription read, "They came not to conquer, but to cure." But not everyone saw them as saviors. In hidden corners of empires, military scientists studied Terran tactics, whispering plans, fearing what would happen if humanity ever turned its wrath toward them. Within the Nightingale's war room, Rhea received a new transmission, a weak signal from a remote colony. "Unknown illness. Spreading fast, please. If you can hear us." The message ended in static. The crew looked to her, waiting. She exhaled slowly. "Set course. Should we send word to the council?" The officer asked. Rhea's answer was the same as always. "No, they'll debate, we'll act." Engines flared. Dreadnoughts awakened, and once again, the Deathworlders moved. Not for conquest, not for revenge, but to heal. Their warships cutting through the dark like blazing comets, symbols of both hope and warning. As the fleet vanished into hyperspace, the Admiral's voice echoed through the ship's speakers, calm, cold, and full of purpose. "We are not destroyers, we are healers. But remember, sometimes healing requires fire." And somewhere in the quiet corners of the galaxy, children looked up at the stars and whispered stories about the Deathworlders, about the humans who cured entire worlds with thunder, and about the Black Fleet that appeared whenever hope was dying. The galaxy would never forget the day it called for healers, and humanity answered, not with gentle hands, but with dreadnoughts that carried both mercy and fire. Because for the Deathworlders of Earth, peace itself was a patient worth saving no matter the cost.